Right, hi there, Richard. Welcome. And nice to see you, David, Karan, Kai, Donald, Nikki, Rydia. And here at the temple we have Rue and what are your gentlemen's names? Who are you two sitting in front of me? What is your name? Matteo. Okay. Lino. Okay. Welcome, Matteo and Lino, here at the temple also. Okay, and Susan over on YouTube. Great. So we can start off by finding our meditation position. So get comfortable, find a stable position to be in, to open up to this lived experience, to our body and mind at this moment. We can take a few breaths, a few deep breaths to bring the thinking, wandering, story-based mind home to the body. Really bring the mind home to the body at this moment. Begin that process of getting out of your own way. So you're not stimulating yourself, you're not going anywhere, you're not doing anything, you're not looking for a better experience, you're not trying to make a judgment about the experience that you're having right now. But just for a moment, to allow the body to be still and comfortable. To breathe deeply and be aware of the lungs, the heart, the head, the back, everything that's here right now, to be aware of it, to be present with it. Many times people are developing very strong, big ideas about spirituality and chakras and kundalini fantasies and mountain Alp experiences. Want to go to the Himalayas and meet yogis, things like this. But they couldn't even sit still. They couldn't for a moment begin the trek to the Himalayas, the trek, the journey, the pilgrimage to this far off, distant spiritual place. Um, it begins by becoming aware of this moment deeply, being with what's happening right now, just for a moment, just to take a look, following the breath as it flows in and flows out, feeling the breath in the body. Just breathing, just being aware. So when we listen to Zen teachings or Buddhist teachings, spiritual teachings, if they're coming from a good source, if they're coming from a place of deep experience, if they're coming from a place of spiritual wealth, we have to listen in a different way from how we watch TikToks or how we listen to YouTube videos or talks about neuroscience or talks about mathematics. We have to listen from the heart, to listen from the breath, to listen from awareness itself, rather than our judgments, our reactivity, our preferences. So today we are going to read a story on awakened women from a book called The Hidden Lamp. And so we will read this kind of enlightenment story about awakened women, enlightened women, and then we'll have a commentary from another woman, a practitioner, an experienced practitioner, um, on their understanding of that story, what came up for them, and what insight they can bring to it. So let's get started today with the story Kui Yuan Gives Birth. And this is from the 17th century in China, this story. Master Shi Shi asked his student, the nun Kui Yan, Buddha nature is not illusory. What was it like when you were nourishing the spiritual embryo? This question here, Buddha nature is not illusory. We can also say that enlightenment is not an illusion. Nirvana, um, true awakening is not a kind of idea or a belief. What was it like when you were nourishing the spiritual embryo? Kui Yan replied, it felt congealed, deep, and solitary. Shi Shi said, when you gave birth to the embryo, what was it like? Kui Yan replied, it was like being completely stripped bare. Shi Shi said, when you met with the Buddha, what was it like? Kui Yan said, I took advantage of the opportunity to meet him face to face. Shi Shi said, good, good. You will be a model for those in the future. And now a reflection from an experienced female practitioner in this tradition, in this Zen tradition. When I first read this interchange between Shi Shi and Kui Yan, with that potent phrase, nourishing the spiritual embryo, some long ago experiences immediately leapt to my mind. In my very first meditation retreat, when I was 19, I suddenly felt as if I were wrapped up in a mysterious birthing process. I had just started working with the koan Mu, and somehow Mu, the whole universe in fact, seemed to have all funneled into my own belly and to be swirling around in there. In a very physical way, I sensed that something was trying to be born through me. At the time, I hadn't a clue as to what was happening. It was an intense and confusing experience, particularly for someone so immature and so devoid of maternal instincts. Maybe because it all seemed so odd, I never mentioned it to my teacher in our quick Dharma interviews, teacher-student interviews. There was nothing like this in the tantalizing enlightenment stories I had read. Even if I could express what I was feeling, It never occurred to me that any man would relate to it. And yet, looking back, I believe my teacher would have understood. What a perfect metaphor for Zen practice, giving birth to the unborn, to our own selfless self. Nourishing the spiritual embryo, a phrase adopted from Taoist teachings, has long been used in Zen to refer to deepening and maturing practice. However others may have used it, for many women, an image like this can be a lot more accessible than the traditional advice to bore through the mind like an iron drill, or the purported words of the Buddha, it's like a strong man pushing down on a weaker one. This establishing of our practice, this deepening of our practice. I remember the turning point in another 7-day retreat when it hit me that none of these very male images was working for me. When I finally had the confidence to toss it all aside and find my own way, working with my meditation, I realized was like surrendering to and merging with a lover, letting Mu talk, letting my meditation walk, letting my meditation eat, letting my meditation do it all. Suddenly practice opened up, shifting into something alive and juicy and intensely close. And then Kui Yan's response to her teacher's question. It felt congealed, deep, and solitary. Anyone who has, even for a moment, found themselves in the dark, radiant depths of meditation will recognize at once what this nun is getting at with these few potent words. Congealed, deep, and solitary. Beautifully hints at this state where the mind finds itself pulled into the very heart of the universe, like some celestial body leaving its familiar orbit and entering the gravitational field of a huge planet. Only the breathing, only the practice. All sense of myself and the world out there burns up in contact with this powerful force field. Through sincere practice, we become more and more simple, plain, empty. Like a great broom, practice itself sweeps right through our ego-tainted motivations, cleansing our hearts and minds. I went to every meditation retreat I could get to that first year. Then early on the last morning of a week-long retreat, after working on my meditation through the night, I found myself in private interview with the teacher, feeling completely stripped bare. Stunned, I remember asking my teacher, "Can it really be so plain?" I meant plain as in obvious, but even more, I meant it as in nothing special. Only then did I realize how strongly I had expected and longed for something glorious, something to crow about, a badge of excellence. That afternoon, at the sound of the last bell signaling the end of the final interview of the meditation retreat, my meditation broke wide open. Nothing was ever quite the same. As I experienced later when giving birth to my children, you have to simply get out of the way and let the great mystery roll right through. In a sense, we are all pregnant with this wondrous Buddha nature. And yet, paradoxically, until we have allowed it to fully come through us, It remains only an embryo, only a potential. And once we have even just a glimpse of this true one, our whole life becomes an opportunity to meet him face to face, moving through the checkout line at the co-op, hiking with children in the woods, greeting the rising sun, steaming vegetables, sitting in meditation. Will we take advantage of these opportunities or not? Everything depends on how we answer this question, not with words and explanations, but with our whole being, moment by moment, breath by breath. Is our Buddha nature, which teachers say is always with us, like a little person inside our bodies? Do we need to take care of it? And does it matter to our Buddha nature who we are or what we do? Chen's Mountain Flowers from the 7th century in China. Chen was a laywoman who traveled far and wide, visiting famous masters. After she realized enlightenment, she composed the following verse. Up on the high slopes, I see only old woodcutters. Everyone has the spirit of the knife and the axe. How can they see the mountain flowers reflected in the water? Glorious, red. Laywoman Chen has seen a lot of the world in her journeys from one spiritual master to another. She has kept her eyes open. She's noticed what's going on. Even up on the high slopes, where the trees grow sparse and vegetation thins out, she sees what people are up to, busily hacking away at anything that can serve as fuel. The old woodcutters are only doing what's been done for generations, taking from earth whatever can be used. They have grown so accustomed to sawing and chopping. It's how they define themselves and their purpose for existence. Their tools, knife, and axe shape their perceptions, direct their movements, become, in a sense, who they are. I love how Chen observes this. I am moved that her quest for enlightenment has not closed her eyes to what is being done in and to the workaday world. It still summons her attention even after she finally realizes enlightenment. I appreciate this because my attention too is so preoccupied with what we collectively are doing to our world. I cannot drive it from my mind. My spiritual practice calls me to come to terms with the destruction we humans are causing. I wouldn't want an enlightenment that would keep me from knowing and feeling the ways our actions are unraveling the very web of life. I want to be present to the suffering that comes with the spirit of the knife and the axe, the spirit of bulldozer and chainsaw, the spirit of deep sea drilling and mountaintop removal, the spirit of factory farms. There are different ways of responding to this hacking away, and my customary response is one of outrage and opposition. I want to make these actions stop. And in order to stop them, I'm ready to harangue those involved, to shame them and show them how wrong they are, and try to take away their tools and their funding. I don't think to aim for anything more. And indeed, outrage and opposition do save some mountain flowers. How different is Chen's response? Instead of staying riveted on what the woodcutters are doing, her mind turns to what they are missing. The mountain flowers are right there in full view. The blossoms are real and red, glorious to behold. See how the water repeats them in its quivering mirror. Chen returns us to our senses, and that is what she wishes for the woodcutters, to see and feel the life around them. Look, right here on the branch of this tree you are chopping, see the bright flowers. As she snaps them awake from their habitual behavior, the world comes into focus. That is the kind of stopping she aims for. That is the kind of stopping where one comes back to oneself. And oneself is the place where real change can occur. So being all too connected, all too familiar with the spirit of the axe, spirit of the blade and the knife to cut, to chop, to pick and choose. And spend these next few minutes seeing the mountain flowers that are right here in front of us, that are in full bloom. This body is the body of Buddha. This mind is no other than the Pure Land, bright, luminous, clear. So we can sit together and practice to see the bright flowers right here on the branch of this tree that we couldn't stop chopping. Please make sure that you are comfortable in your meditation position. Sitting alone together, just breathing, just being aware. just like those woodcutters on the mountain who have so ingrained in them this spirit of the axe, this spirit of the knife to cut, to chop, to take. We are so acquainted with this spirit of picking and choosing, cutting and chopping, changing this moment to try and use it for some desirable experience, or to cut something off because it's undesirable. If we could only see at this moment these beautiful flowers of the present that are reflected in our awareness. There's no need to chop, no need to cut, no need to change. This moment as it is right now is full of these unique, changing, precious glimmers of light in the Buddha field. Just to breathe and be aware, to put down our picking and choosing, our slicing and dicing, to experience this moment in all its fullness. So we'll finish today with a few mountain poems from Zen monk Stonehouse, who lived in ancient China. After 20 years of nights beneath the moon and the clouds, to find myself old is hard. Crows come looking for food at the altar. Monks return with empty begging bowls. Others work the waves for shrimp and clams. I swing a hoe in the mountains. When Solomon's seal is gone, there is still pine pollen and 1 square inch free of care. Solomon's seal here is a type of plant that Stonehouse could farm and eat, a root. Seclusion, of course, means far from the world. Thick moss, deep woods, and perfumed plants. The sight of mountains, rain or shine, no sounds of a market, day or night. I burn dry leaves in my stove to make tea, and to patch my old robe, I cut a cloud by the cliff. Lifetimes seldom fill 100 years. Why suffer chasing profit and fame? I entered the mountains and learned to be dumb. I'm usually too tired to open my mouth. I don't point out the mistakes of others. My own faults are what I try to alter. The tea must be ready. My clay stove is red. The moon must be up. The paper windows are white. Who in the past saw through this transient world? Yanzu Ling fished alone from his rock. So this is where we will finish with our group meditation for today. Okay. Yeah, I have a PayPal. It's very kind of you. If you go to the info page You should find it. And you can also just send me a message and I'll send it to you. Is that Mr. Sunshine? You have a first name you like to use? Okay, Daniel. Well, glad that you're here. Okay, much appreciated. Does anyone else have a question or something to share before we finish? Okay, so we can all bring our hands together and expressing our wisdom, our heart, our compassion, sharing that outwardly. We can all make three sadhus together, which of course means excellent, wonderful, good job. And we give ourselves a pat on the back and we let all of our neighbors know we've been meditating, we've been listening to listening to Zen so they can hear our sweet sounds, right? And it's nice to share, to vocalize like this. Can be a nice practice. So welcome to chant along with me as we make these three sadhus to finish. Sadhu. 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 Okay, thank you all for being here. Be happy. See you again soon.